We think we know the people around us. We laugh with them, break bread with them, listen to their stories, and maybe even trust them with parts of our soul. And yet, years can pass, and we still might never truly see them. Not really, because most of what we experience is their mask, the version of themselves they've learned to wear to survive, to be accepted, to impress. But underneath all of that lies something raw, something real. And that realness only emerges when no one is watching, when they aren't trying, when life catches them off guard. Carl Jung once revealed a truth so piercing, it's almost uncomfortable, that a person's essence isn't found in what they say or how they appear. It's found in the quiet moments, unguarded, inconvenient, and often unnoticed, where their soul forgets to hide. It's in those brief flashes where the truth escapes, a reaction, a glance, a tone of voice not rehearsed. That's where the soul leaks through. And if you know how to see it, if you've trained your awareness to tune in, you'll realize that character is not something people declare. It's something they live, often without realizing it. We walk through life assuming we know others, but until we've seen them face life without their script or without control, we don't know who they really are. And perhaps we don't fully know ourselves either. There are moments that act like mirrors. They don't shout, they don't explain, but they reflect. And in that reflection, we find a depth of truth that words cannot offer. Watch closely. Not when someone is trying to impress, but when they think no one's looking. That's when it happens. That's when the polished surface cracks, and the soul whispers its truth. How someone treats those who hold no power over them speaks volumes. The server at the restaurant, the cleaner in the hallway, the security guard outside the building, or the child who stares at them with innocent eyes. There's no applause in those moments, no gain, no advantage. Just a raw opportunity to reveal who they are when there's nothing to win. That's where the mask of the mask slips. Someone extends kindness not for show, not for credit, but simply because they see worth in another soul. That's not performance. That's truth. That's alignment. But when there's impatience, arrogance, or indifference, when someone looks through others as if they're invisible, what we're witnessing isn't just a moment of rudeness, it's a fracture in the spirit. A part of them that's still lost, still aching for validation, still measuring human worth by status, by usefulness, by how much someone can give them. And that fracture reveals far more than any story they could tell. These small moments, the ones that seem unimportant, these are the ones that speak loudest. And it's not just about observing others, it turns the lens back on us. How do we treat the ones society overlooks? The ones who hold no doors, offer no favors, write no praise? Our reaction there doesn't just define our relationship with them. It reveals our relationship with ourselves. Because if we only offer kindness where there's something to gain, then what we're calling kindness is really just strategy. In a world obsessed with image, power, and perfection, choosing to honor every soul, regardless of their status, is an act of quiet rebellion. It's a healing. And not just for the world around us, but for our own fragmented hearts. Because when you stop chasing validation and start connecting soul to soul without agenda, something changes. The walls fall, the illusions fade. And you begin to see clearly, both others and yourself. But there's another space where character gets revealed. It's not in how we treat others when we feel strong. It's how we behave when life says no. When we're denied, ignored, misunderstood, delayed. That's where the real test begins, because anyone can be graceful when things go their way. But when the doors don't open, when the traffic won't move, when life interrupts the plan, we meet someone else entirely. Do they blame, snap, or raise their voice, or shut down in icy silence? Do they unleash their pain on whoever's nearby, or do they pause? Do they sit in the discomfort without letting it poison everyone around them? That moment of stillness in the face of frustration, if it exists, is not performance. It's strength, it's awareness, it's growth. Because pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. Just like heat brings impurities to the surface, life's interruptions bring the truth forward, and that truth is often uncomfortable. But it's also where healing begins. It's where compassion finds its roots, not just for others, but for ourselves too. So if you really want to know someone, don't just listen to what they say. Watch how they respond when things don't go their way. That's where their story is told. That's where the soul steps into the light. Not rehearsed, not polished, just real. When life throws up a wall and the way forward vanishes, something inside us scrambles. The ego doesn't like being cornered. It flares up, lashes out, clutches for control, or sinks into despair. But most of the time, we're not reacting to what's happening in front of us. We're reacting to something much older, much deeper, a wound that never learned how to sit with disappointment. A traffic jam isn't just a delay. It's a feeling of powerlessness. A rejection echoes the old ache of invisibility. A delay starts whispering that we're not good enough. But not everyone reacts this way. Some people move through the world differently, and they've done the quiet, invisible work. The work no one claps for. They don't take every no like it's an attack. They don't numb their emotions or explode with them. They simply observe. Frustration still visits them, but it doesn't stay long, because they don't become the emotion. They hold space for it, and that changes everything. It's not about achieving emotional perfection. It's about being emotionally awake. The ones who stay grounded when life gets inconvenient, when they're misunderstood, or when outcomes don't favor them, those people have earned that steadiness. They've stumbled enough times, seen themselves in the mirror of failure, and realized that not every closed door is assigned to break it down. They've stopped waging war against uncertainty. A moment of discomfort is no longer an emergency, it's information. It shows them where their peace was borrowed, where they still expect the world to cooperate in order to feel okay. You'll notice these people don't rush to fix or force. They pause, they breathe. Their silence isn't repression, it's regulation. Their calm doesn't mean they're resigned, it means they've found clarity, because they no longer live at the mercy of their triggers. They've gone inside and sat with the parts of themselves that used to be left behind. They've become the caregiver their younger self cried for, the one who doesn't leave just because it's hard. So when something goes wrong, they don't slam doors or shut down. They stay open to being present, open to owning their part, open to grace, even when it doesn't come naturally. And that's where real growth lives, not in how we behave when things are smooth, but in who we become when life refuses to go our way. Do we make others feel small in our struggle, or do we rise in a way that makes even pain feel safe? You'll learn more about a person in one honest moment of disappointment than you will in months of charm. Because our reactions don't lie. They expose the truth our words try to hide. There's a space between the trigger and the response, a fragile gap where the soul makes its choice. Will we repeat the story, or will we rise? There's a voice in that space. Quiet, raw, unfiltered. It doesn't perform. It shows up when the room is empty and the mask is off. It speaks after failure, after the mistake, after the applause fades. That voice is where our real maturity lives. Most people have learned how to sound kind to others. They know the lines, but the way they speak to themselves when no one is watching, that's where the truth lives. For many, that voice is brutal. When they fall short, they don't offer grace. They punish. They replay their flaws over and over. They say things to themselves they'd never say to someone they love. And then they wonder why peace slips through their fingers. You can feel it in their energy even when they say nothing. That inner harshness wraps around them like a quiet tension. They might be smiling, but their spirit is tight. They might succeed, but the joy doesn't land. That silent cruelty shapes them into perfectionists, people-pleasers, overachievers who apologize for existing. It shows up in how they second-guess their voice, how they brace for a rejection that hasn't even arrived. Because when the voice inside keeps whispering, "You're not enough," the world begins to mirror it right back. No amount of love from outside can fully reach someone who's still at war within. But some have chosen a different path. They've failed, yes, but they've also forgiven. They've made mistakes and still offered themselves a hand. Their inner voice holds them accountable, but with softness. They no longer weaponize their flaws. When they fall, they don't spiral. They listen. They learn. They say, "This hurts, but I'm still whole. This is hard, but I am still worthy." That voice becomes their shelter, a place they return to when the noise of the world becomes too loud. And that kind of voice doesn't show up overnight. It's carved through self-confrontation, through facing the stories they were handed as children, through sitting with the parts of themselves that felt unloved, unwanted, unsafe. It takes time. It takes choosing love over judgment again and again, mid-sentence, mid-breakdown, mid-doubt, and slowly the tone inside changes. The old critic loses its edge. A new voice takes shape, steady, warm, wise. That voice becomes their ground. You see it in how they bounce back from rejection, and how they carry their solitude, not as emptiness, but as sacred space. If you want to know someone's true worth, don't look at how they treat you when things go right. Look at how they treat themselves when they don't. Ask yourself, when life gets quiet, what voice do they turn to? Does it tear them down or lift them back up? Because real strength isn't loud. It's found in how gently someone speaks to themselves when the world offers no applause. And if you truly want to understand others, their pain, their patterns, their need to control, start not with them, but with yourself. The world is not just a mystery. It's a mirror. Most of what catches your attention in others is a reflection of what remains unseen in you. So pay attention, not with judgment, but with quiet honesty. Watch how people move through the small, ordinary moments, the slow line, the miscommunication, the unexpected change. These fragments say more than rehearsed words ever could, but the real work isn't in watching them. It's in gently turning the mirror inward. Ask yourself, what do you do when the day falls apart? When things don't unfold the way you expected? When someone lets you down? When you feel unseen, forgotten, or like you don't matter at all? Do you shut down, stew in silence, lash out to reclaim a sense of control? Or can you sit with the discomfort, breathe through it, and meet that moment without needing to defend your pride? Start watching closely. Not just the big moments, but the ones you dismiss as ordinary. The way you speak to a stranger behind the counter. The story your mind writes when a text goes unanswered. The way your shoulders tense when life presses a little too hard. These small things, they're not random. They're trails, leading back to emotional patterns you've been carrying for years without even realizing. But if you have the courage to stay present, to simply notice instead of judge, those patterns become mirrors. They show you not just where you've been, but where you have the power to go next. This isn't about striving to be flawless. It's about learning to be awake in your own life. When you start observing yourself through a lens of compassion without rushing into guilt or blame, you begin to break free. You stop running the same inherited scripts and you start writing new ones, ones that reflect who you're becoming, not just who you've been. So when someone gets under your skin, try not to react. Just pause. Feel what rises. Is it anger, shame, fear of being dismissed again like you were long ago? That space between the feeling and your reaction is the doorway. It's where your healing lives. And over time, with practice, something beautiful happens. You stop seeing others as the enemy. You begin to see them as they really are, people carrying invisible weight just like you. Your perception sharpens, but not into judgment, into empathy. You begin to spot the fear behind the arrogance, the hurt behind the outbursts, the fragility inside the armor. You read more than just words. You sense the energy, the tone, the things left unsaid. And perhaps most importantly, you start to trust yourself. Not the loud voice that wants to be right, but the quiet knowing that comes from self-understanding. True wisdom isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It watches, it listens, it sees clearly, because it's not clouded by ego. If you want peace in your relationships, if you're tired of chaos or pretending not to see the red flags, start here. Start with you. Not to find faults, but to learn your own rhythm. Because the more familiar you are with your own inner storms, the better you'll navigate others. You'll stop needing to chase what's real, and instead start aligning with what's true. What defines a person isn't what they show in the spotlight. It's how they show up when no one's clapping. The words they choose when they're frustrated. The integrity they hold when it's inconvenient. The way they treat themselves when the world turns cold. That's where character lives. In the unseen, in the unnoticed choices that quietly build the architecture of who you are. Every day offers you these silent tests. You'll know them. A line that moves too slow, a careless comment from someone you love, the sting of missing out on something you wanted, a night spent in the stillness of your own thoughts. And in those moments, life isn't asking you to perform. It's asking, who are you willing to be right now? The beautiful thing is, you get to answer that question again and again. You aren't frozen in the mistakes of your past. Character isn't fixed. It's sculpted in the small, ordinary moments when no one is watching, in how you speak when you're tired, in how you treat the ones who offer you nothing in return, in how you forgive yourself when you fall short of who you wanted to be. If your chest tightens with memories of when you didn't pause, when you lashed out, when you judged instead of held space, breathe. You are not disqualified from growth. You are not broken. Those moments don't define you. They show you where your next lesson lives. Every misstep is a teacher, not a life sentence. What matters is whether you're willing to learn from it. Real strength isn't built by never falling. It's built by rising after, by choosing presence over reaction, by asking yourself hard questions. Did I move from fear, or did I choose love? That's where growth takes root. That's how you start to anchor in something deeper than a temporary performance. Because the way you hold your shadows, the parts of you that you'd rather hide, shapes how you treat others. The way you speak to yourself trains the world how to speak to you. The energy you bring into a room doesn't just stay with you. It builds an atmosphere. It becomes your legacy. This is no small thing. You're constructing your life with every word, every breath, every silent decision. A wall, a bridge, a storm, a sanctuary you choose. And here's the truth you can hold on to when the road feels long. Who you're becoming matters more than who you've been. Life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest, to be curious, to look in the mirror and see it all. The grace, the mess, the strength you forgot you had. When you see yourself clearly, you begin to see others clearly too. You stop needing them to be perfect. You start looking for alignment, for honesty, for presence. This is how character is shaped, not by what happens to you, but by what you give back to the world. In your tone, in your silence, and your decision to show kindness when bitterness would be easier. These moments, they aren't small. They are sacred. They are the bricks of your becoming. And when life tests you again, and it will pause, feel your breath. Listen to the quiet voice inside. And instead of asking, what do I deserve right now? Ask, who do I want to be in this moment? That question will guide you home. Not in some grand, dramatic way, but step by step, breath by breath, choice by choice. Because character is not something you have, it's something you choose. Again and again